Developing a director's package using Excel. Chapter 1. Overview. Now this session gives you an overview and an introduction to the application. Firstly, you might be wondering just what I mean by a director's package, so let's address that. It is defined as the group of accounting reports which the Board of Directors require each month. It is typically prepared by the CFO and the controller and based on the current trial balance, which can be printed from whatever accounting system or ERP the company is using. It's unusual for the director's package to be printed directly from the ERP, but obviously it's not impossible. However, many companies find that in order to satisfy the board, they need to use Excel to prepare the custom reports. A note here, I just want to mention right at the outset that there should be no adjustments done in the package, and therefore we will not do so here. Those of you who have read 7 Habits of Highly Successful People will recognize the wisdom of Stephen Covey's second habit: start with the end in mind. In other words, plan ahead, decide in advance what you wish to achieve and how it will be presented. So I encourage you to plan your model in advance of writing it. Think, design, and implement. Remember, you can always amend a plan. It's an iterative process. I'm reminded of the words of Ike Eisenhower, who said, "I never knew a battle to go according to plan, but I would never want to go into battle without one." Now, many people just start a project by grabbing Excel and bashing ahead. This is tantamount to building a house like a farmer. This is what we call piecemeal development. Let's have a living room here, and we build it before. Oh, let's add a bedroom. Okay, where? Well, there we are. We build it again. Now let's add a bathroom. Where? Well, we'll build it here, and now we need a dining room, and we need a kitchen. Finished house looks like it was built piecemeal. Now, Excel does allow this sort of development. You have the ultimate in flexibility, and unlike a house which is physically built, it's easy to alter. But if we plan, it'll provide benefits down the road. There are some rules to designing this application, and I want to go through these. There are 5 of them. First of all, design an input area for input. In other words, make it easy to put in your input. Number 2, design a control area for your assumptions. 3, design permanent dating area. You can store your permanent, and this might be things like budgets and that type of thing. 4, designate an area for your workings. And of course 5 at the end, design the reports as output with no workings. You see here that I have 10 steps. I'm showing you all 10 steps together because I want you to get an overview of the development. We are at present in step 1, looking at an overview. After this we will go on to design issues, and then on to the 3rd step, importing the data. Now this means bringing a trial balance into Excel in the form, format and the place that we want it. Then we'll have a look at some workings and produce some summaries, and then we'll go on to the output. Pretty basic output, and I will probably only be able to cover the basic output. This is the balance sheet, income statement, cash flow statement. That's step 5. Step 6, the workings, intermediate. Well, I'll show you the comparisons of those workings going beyond the basics. And then we'll have output by way of trend reports. And then step 8, output by way of comparisons to budget, previous year. And then step 9, we'll build in some internal audit controls into our model so that we can actually, we have these built-in checks and balances. And then step 10, of course, is to review and discuss any future development that we might want in our model. There are really 4 parts. The 10 steps are contained in 4 parts. These can be considered milestones, and you can either use these 4 steps, or you can use the 4 parts or the 10 steps. Happily, we don't have to be rigid. We can consider factors and features as we go along. We can even divert a little. In fact, we do that in order to discuss a function more fully that we need in the application. This is perhaps a meandering approach, but you will learn actually not only this application but some great things from Excel at the same time. And then the last heading, reports, may result in us going back into the other 3 parts. Directors might want to add another report or another item of information which will necessitate us expanding the model. Hopefully we'll find this an exciting project, even if it is cunningly disguised as work. So let's start by looking at part 1, design issues, and here we're going to look at project specifications, components, and then lastly we're going to get an overall picture by looking at a graphical view of what we're trying to do. Now, specifications, what we need to do here is to set our objectives. In other words, what output do we want? What data do we have to store in our model in order to produce that output? And what sort of features will we like? Milestones, we set these as our progress indicators as we develop this model. After those 2, we're in a position to decide what resources we need. We may need to get ourselves a specialist or a consultant, something like that. And then lastly we will propose a schedule. Let's allocate the milestones to a schedule. So here I'm just mentioning a general approach and trying to get some structure into what we're doing. The components of our model, instead of just starting, as many do, to design the output reports and then typing the input into the output, we need to have some idea of the various sections that we'll need in this application. Now, many Excel non-professional developers and some professionals do not know the rules of development. These include, number 1, do not include data within your workings. In other words, don't have input all over the place. This results in an error-prone application. Centralize your input and design it for ease of input. Use name variables, whether they be ranges or single items of crucial data, wherever you can. And here I might just comment, be appropriate. So what I'm trying to say is separate the input, the workings, and the output. You can use colored tabs in Excel to indicate the type of worksheets. You must also plan a logical structure. Now, I'm sure I'm not saying anything that is alien here. Here I want to go on to this spreadsheet and show you what I'm talking about. Now this opens at a cover sheet, and you'll see here in this cover sheet we have the name of the company, we have the month which we're preparing the data from, and one of the things that I've done in this cover sheet is I've put in an updated as of. Now notice that's not update by copy paste special values only. In other words, it's not automatic. This one here says is actually the current time and date. So if you're going to update this, you can copy this field here into this field there, dropping your formula. The formula you can see at the top there says equal now, which gives you the current time and date. I found this necessary because then you know what version you are working on. I'm quite sure you've all made some alterations to a spreadsheet and then found that you were looking at another version, and now you have two versions with different updates, and that's the way to chaos. In this application we have a number of tabs along the bottom. Now a little Excel trick is that you right click the navigation bar and up pops a list of the tabs in your worksheet. I have too many for this list, so I click on more sheets and I get this window. This window I can scroll through my tabs, and here I'm at the cover. Back here at the beginning I can actually select what we call the selection, and it will take me to here. Here I have a journal entry for my parent company's accounting system, so that I can put the summary in of what's happened in my company in as one journal entry into the parent. Not everybody will want to do that, of course. Here's the equity section. Here's a commentary on the income statement and the balance sheet. Here we have a cash flow statement. Now I don't expect you to I do not expect you to be able to read all these things, and it doesn't really matter. Just suffice it at this stage to know that there is a cash flow statement in the model. Here's a balance sheet. Here's profit and loss by account, profit and loss by internal account, profit and loss by department, department by account, some graphs. I keep my accounting data in another sheet, and here I had the ending balances from my GL. And lastly, I have an audit section. Notice over here, I've left that deliberately. I have a 50 cent error between the ending cash balance in the cash flow statement and in the balance sheet. I'm sure none of you have ever had a 50-cent error between those before. Here's a list of departments in this company which I use. This is part of my permanent data. And here's my cover sheet. So there's a little overview of the application. Let's go back to PowerPoint and get on with our next slide. And our next slide is your graphical overview. They say a picture shows tells 1,000 words. Well, here's your 1,000 words. So let's just review the structure. We have our current data, which is our current month's trial balance. Current metadata could be the name of the current month. Current information could be like the comments between this month's balance sheet and last month's balance sheet, and your explanation for why there have been some changes. And then here at the bottom I show permanent data. This includes your budgets, previous year or previous periods data for comparisons. This all feeds into a working area and comes out here in the form of reports. So looking at the four parts of what we want to cover here, the first part is our design. The second, preparing and importing the data. 3 is the internal workings of our package. And 4, output reports. We've come to the end of our introduction. What we have discussed is we've discussed treating the development of a director's package as a project. We've looked at the components. We've established some sort of timeline. We've decided to tackle the project in 4 parts divided into 10 steps. We have discussed some design issues, and we have displayed our model as a graphic overview. And thus we have taken step 1. Next we will consider design in more details, and here we will pause for questions.